Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and like always, this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussions, plus all smart takes without the clickbait. And today we're going to be discussing the two moderate trades that the 49ers made, one for receiver Sky Moore from the Kansas City Chiefs, and then Brian Robinson, running back formerly of the Washington Commanders. We're going to just talk about those trades and break down what it means for the roster. And then I want to get into some quick position battles to look out for heading into this final preseason game tomorrow against the Chargers, but then also decisions that Kyle, John, and team are going to have to make leading up to final cut, which is only a couple days after the final preseason game. So let's jump right into it. Niners earlier this week traded for Chiefs wide receiver Sky Moore. It was essentially a late round pick swap. And this is a player that had some hype coming out of college in 2022, put up some impressive yardage, impressive numbers, has made a minimal impact in his first 2 years with the Chiefs, won a Super Bowl in 2023 against the Niners, caught a touchdown in that Super Bowl against the Niners, was hurt in October of last year, put on IR, did not, record any sort of stat. And my gut reaction to this is, okay, they need bodies. The thoughts of an Amari Cooper, a Gabe Davis, an OBJ, any bigger name receivers that people are throwing out there was always going to be a pipe dream, right? One, you can't force these players to sign with you. The only way that you can really make it super tempting for them is to throw a lot of money at them, which San Francisco wasn't going to do. And the Niners have essentially their top four receivers on their team locked up in terms of when Ayuk is healthy and Jennings is healthy and Pearsall and Demarcus Robinson. So, I don't want to automatically say that someone like a Gabe Davis comes in. He's automatically, when everybody's healthy, wide receiver 5, because he could push for better playing time. But it's also up to that receiver to see the situation he's going to be brought in. If he is a receiver 4 or 5, is OBJ, Gabe Davis, Amari Cooper, anybody like that going to want to play special teams? Of course not. They're looking at the big picture, and the biggest part of the picture is money, where San Francisco wasn't going to pony up a lot of money. You saw when players were getting hurt during training camp, it was a bottom of the roster, bottom of the wide receiver position group type of churn. And most recently, it was bringing Malik Turner back, bringing Sky Moore in terms of a trade. Now, where I'm not going to say worried about this trade, because, they need warm bodies. I'm going to go over who the week 1 on the field players at receiver are probably going to be. But I made the statement last year and into this offseason that Andy Reid, Sean McVay, other innovative, probably Ben Johnson, innovative offensive coaches would have found a way to get Jacob Cowing on the field last year. They were in desperate need of his speed, his skill set, especially when Ayuk got hurt. And it was apparent that some games Debo was having trouble separating. Unfortunately, Juwan Jennings stepped up, but there was a need for a player like Cowing to push for more playing time, and he did not. So my mind goes to, if Andy Reid could not get Sky Moore to work, why would I have confidence that Kyle can? The confidence is coming from, or the common sense or logic is coming from, they need warm bodies. So whether Sky Moore works or he absolutely doesn't, he's going to be out there, because as of now, he's healthy. And oh boy, there's a whole lot of time between now and September 7th for Sky Moore or someone else to not be healthy. I don't know if Sky Moore is going to play against the Chargers. I know a lot of starters, the vast majority of starters, are not. But there's time. There is time for players of any position to get bitten by the 49er injury bug. Now, John Lynch spoke today and mentioned that one of the reasons, the need at the position was the big reason to make the trade, but one of the reasons why they targeted someone like Sky Moore was his dual return ability, punt return and kick return. He's been in the league for if you want to say 2 and not even 2.5 years, when he got hurt in October and was put on IR, let's just say 2 years, his first 2 years in the league, he only returned 14 punts, 6.1 yard per punt return average. Nothing fantastic. But Lynch said with Cowing out, that also helps to fill a need. Now, what is Lynch not saying there? He's not mentioning Junior Bergen. Junior Bergen is, by all intents and purposes, not really an option at punt returner. And if he's not really an option at punt returner, he's not really an option for the 53-man roster. His best chance to stick on the squad is the practice squad at this point. Now, we know the injuries, guys, right? We know Aiyuk isn't going to be back till October or November. Jacob Cowing re-injured his hamstring. He has as many injuries to the same hamstring as days he's attempted to practice in training camp 2. Russell Gage, who is having a nice camp and flashed some in preseason games, is out for 7 to 10 days with a knee sprain. And Jordan Watkins, the rookie, high ankle sprain, he'll be out for a few more weeks, but there's still 2 weeks to get to game 1. Am I confident that Watkins will be healthy to play in that game? I'm not. So on top of obviously Aiyuk on PUP, you have Demarcus Robinson. It was announced that he's been suspended 3 games by the league. They're going to appeal that. I don't know, how they have 5 days to appeal from when the suspension comes down. They've appealed it already. I don't know what the resolution is going to be within the next 2 weeks. Let's just assume he's out. And I think the safe assumption is the appeal will not wipe off all 3 games. If anything, he's suspended for 1 or 2 games, or all 3 are upheld. Let's just say he's gone for the first 3 games. The week 1 wide receivers on the on the 53-man roster, maybe not the 46 game day roster, but the 53-man roster are going to be Ricky Pearsall, Russell Gage, Robbie Chosen, Sky Moore, Isaiah Hodgins, and possibly Jordan Watkins. Now that brings us to 6, right? Pearsall, Gage, Chosen, Sky Moore, Isaiah Hodgins, Jordan Watkins. And I didn't mention Pearsall because we have no idea what's going on with Pearsall, right? If he hasn't practiced in, I don't know, close to a month, and it is a calf, and there is a contract aspect to this, whatever percentage you want to break it down, 50% calf, 50% contract, I don't know. So that's 6 receivers that could be on the 53 with Jennings as number 7. Now, is there the possibility Jennings can go on short-term IR if it's a legitimate calf injury? Sure. Is there the possibility that Jacob Cowing goes? I think Cowing goes on IR. He goes on short-term IR. You get him healthy and you get him ready for October-ish when God knows who else in the receiving core is going to get injured. Maybe you have Aiyuk and Cowing come back at the same time, or Cowing comes back earlier, Aiyuk comes back a couple weeks later. So there could be, I don't think it's just going to be 5. I mean, you could go with 5, right? I mean, if you go with Pearsall, Gage, Chosen, Sky Moore, and let's say Jennings is healthy, that's your 5th. Or Hodgins and Jennings, but Jennings is a game day inactive, and maybe you put Cowing and Jordan Watkins on injured reserve. They're going to have to figure stuff out. I can't imagine them only going with 4 active wide receivers. Now, they're not a team that goes 3 wide a whole lot, and they certainly don't go 4 pure wide receivers a lot. But I think at your bare minimum, it's Pearsall, Gage, Chosen, Moore, and Hodgins. And Watkins could be there. And I know I haven't mentioned Jennings again. And these are all things that they have to figure out. Who is legitimately healthy? Is there any chance Watkins can get back before short-term IR is kind of like puppets? You have to miss 4 weeks and you can get ramped up for game time. Same thing with Cowing. And someone like Russell Gage, people are going to say, oh, yeah, but he could miss time. They said 7 to 10 days when he got hurt a couple days ago. Let's just say 2 weeks. That still leaves him a handful of days to get ready for the Seahawk game. And I think he will be fine for that. So they might be rolling out there with Pearsall, Sky Moore, and a whole bunch of veterans, Gage, Chosen, and Hodgins, which isn't a bad thing, right? We know Kyle's somewhat reluctance to play young players, to have Russell Gage active instead of Jordan Watkins active might not be a bad thing. To have Robbie Chosen or Isaiah Hodgins active instead of Jacob Cowing might not be a bad thing. You actually might get production from veterans versus young players that are, if you want to say, still finding their way, or at least we know trying to shake off the injury bug. And you still have someone like, if you chose to keep only, say, 5 receivers on the roster, you could still call up someone like a Malik Turner or a Junior Bergen from the practice squad for a week 1 or week 2 game if you absolutely need the body. But I think Cowing goes on IR. I think there's a decent chance Watkins goes on IR. And then if that is the case, you have Pearsall, Gage, Chosen, Sky Moore, Isaiah Hodgins, and Juwan Jennings as your 6 receivers on the 53-man roster, with Juwan Jennings as your inactive. If the calf, I don't say if the calf is as bad as they're leading us to believe, because they're just saying it's a calf. They're not saying severity. But if the calf and the contract get worked out, those who I am anticipating on the 53. Now let's move on to the trade of the running back, Brian Robinson of the Commanders. Niners gave up a 6th round pick, big running back, 6'1", about 230. He's a better receiver than you may think. Not a lot of people out there watching Washington Commanders games the last couple of years or beyond last year before Jalen Daniels got there. But his last 3 years, his average is about 770 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns per year, a 4.0 average, and annually averaging about 22 receptions, 190 yards, and 1 touchdown. Initially, I was against a trade for a running back. Now we know the injuries, right? So Patrick Taylor got injured earlier this week. Corey Kiner got injured earlier this week or end of last week with an ankle. He was released. No one claimed him. He reverted back to IR for San Francisco. And if the 49ers designate him as one of their 8 players to return, he could potentially return later on in the year. But I was against trading for a running back because of, one, the rental aspect. You're giving up a draft pick, even if it's a late round draft pick, for a player that's not going to be here next year. Brian Robinson is going to get a contract, assuming he stays quasi-healthy, which I know is not a given with this team or any player that joins this team. But he's going to get a contract potentially similar to what Jordan Mason got. Now, maybe the Niners decide to give him some sort of a tag, although he wasn't an undrafted rookie free agent, so that's probably not going to work. But maybe they get a comp pick close to, say, a 6th or 7th round pick, comparable to what they gave up for him. So a wash, not the end of the world. Seeing what people are kind of posting online of, they traded Debo for a 5th. They got Marquise Siegel. With Jordan Mason, they traded him for a late round pick. You could look at him as Brian Robinson as the replacement, coming in at a cheaper cost. He does make the running back room stronger. I'm not going to say that he doesn't. I was just against the idea of a trade, much like why people were against Kyle drafting running backs early, because he finds value in running backs late. And as undrafted, rookie free agents, between a Matt Breida, Jeff Wilson, Elijah Mitchell late, Robinson making the team better is totally fine. Before this, I was okay with the running back room of McCaffrey, Guerendo, Jordan James, the rookie, and Jeff Wilson Jr. I've said it last podcast, still surprised Wilson didn't get the nod initially when they worked out Wilson and Amir Abdullah. But Wilson's back, for now, and they still have Keyshawn Vaughn as, I guess, technically now the 6th running back on the roster as Brian Robinson joins the team. Now, the trade, to me, says or questions a couple things about what's going on in that running back room. One, is Guerendo or James hurt worse than the team has led everyone to believe? Guerendo had the shoulder injury. He returned to practice this week. James with the finger, I believe, don't quote me on this, that he returned to practice also. But I guess there is maybe some worry about how healthy they're going to be week 1. Now, Guerendo, I don't know if James is going to play. Wilson's going to play. Keyshawn Vaughn. This last game against the Chargers, the only 2 running backs that are definitely not going to play is McCaffrey and Brian Robinson. So at least coming out of preseason game number 3, you have 2 running backs healthy. After that at practice, it's no holds barred. Who knows? It's a roll of the dice. So you're going to have Guerendo, Wilson, and Vaughn get carries. Maybe Keyshawn Vaughn gets the most since he's the lock to not make the roster. But more so, has Kyle is Kyle starting to lose faith in Isaac Guerendo. Guerendo had injury issues in college, was banged up, missed some time last year, is banged up currently, has missed time in camp. Trade now, you don't have to trade for a player to bring in another body at the running back position to supplement your running back room. But I will say it is, thinking about it more, it is nice to get a starting caliber running back to back up McCaffrey. We'll see how many now, the funny thing is, Kyle has come out and said, we don't platoon backs. We're like a one running back heavy team. Granted, it was only a 6th round pick, but are you going to make a trade for a running back and then just not play him? Or give him 3 to 5 carries a game? If that, 5 carries a game means 85 carries on the season for Robinson if he stays healthy. That's not really a quantity that other running backs have gotten when McCaffrey has been healthy. I don't know if this trade in any way, shape, or form signals a shift in Kyle's mentality of it can't or shouldn't be the CMC show all the time. You can get hurt on any given play, but there is something to be said for more wear and tear. And when you have a bigger back, a bruising back like Brian Robinson, who can still catch the ball out of the backfield, and then maybe Guerendo is your true third down change of pace speed back, then I don't know what that leaves for Jordan James. Like, you drafted him. Yes, I know he broke his finger and the timing of that sucks, obviously. Is Kyle going to keep 4 running backs active on game day? And if he does, is it Guerendo or Jordan James that's going to play special teams? I guess whoever winds up being the number 4 running back, or whoever winds up being better at special teams. But there is the chance that, say, Jordan James isn't active for most of the season. If they only activate 3 running backs, that doesn't mean he's a bust. It means just in the trickle-down effect of bringing in Brian Robinson, someone may have to be deactivated. And Jeff Wilson, who I like more than most, when he was playing with San Francisco, he reminded me of Ricky Waters. Now, that shouldn't be sacrilege for anybody. I know Ricky Waters had, a good couple years in San Francisco before he was did he go to Philadelphia next? And then he was with Seattle for a while. And had three touchdowns in the Super Bowl, had a 5 touchdown game the year before in the playoffs against the Giants. I like Ricky Waters a whole lot, but I'm not going to romanticize what he was during that time. He wasn't a 1,500-yard running back. It wasn't even like a 12 or 1,300-yard running back, but a good dual purpose running back. Wilson runs like him, that upright, the way kind of like he slides his torso, reminiscent of Ricky Waters. And I'm glad that he's back. He is a much better running back than Patrick Taylor. There are people on social media that are dying on the hill that Kyle was going to carve out. He was going to carve out the Jordan Mason role for Patrick Taylor. What was the Jordan Mason role, guys, last year? He had no role when CMC and Guerendo were healthy. He was the 3rd running back. He literally did not get into the game. Then McCaffrey got hurt. It wound up being the then Jordan Mason kind of got in. He was the backup. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. He did get a lot. He got a lot of carries, and then he got hurt, and then it was the Isaac Guerendo role. Any backup running back doesn't. Your role is backup running back. So if this content creator actually thinks that Patrick Taylor was going to be a number 2 running back, they got to get their head out of their ass. Patrick Taylor is just a guy. And then he doubles down and this one content creator posts a clip of that touchdown run he had against the Raiders. He ran sideways straight into the end zone with no one really chasing him. I could have done that. Patrick Taylor has not shown much outside of the Week 18 game last year against Arizona, where he went over 100 yards, that he is anything more than a number 3 or number 4 running back. And you know what? That's not an insult. That's still making an NFL roster and making a pretty damn good living, if you can carve out, 4 plus 5, 6, 7 years doing that. So Robinson making the running back room stronger. Wilson, hopefully he sticks around and bounces down to the practice squad. Otherwise, I could see Keyshawn Vaughn there. I wonder, I don't think the Niners cannot release Corey Kiner again, but if he did not get injured, I was wondering if he was going to be a candidate for the practice squad. Because remember, other teams only poach a practice squad player to put them on their active roster. You're not going to go from practice squad to practice squad. So I thought Corey Kiner was going to be relatively safe. The ankle injury threw a bit of a monkey wrench in there, but The acquisition of Brian Robinson makes the running back room stronger now than it's been for the majority of the offseason. So now let's quickly talk about position battles to keep our eye on. Yeah, preseason game 3 doesn't matter. You just want to get out of it healthy. The most entertaining thing that's going to come out of preseason game 3 is, well, two things. It's Carter Bradley versus Tanner Mordecai versus Trey Lance. And if you're part of, 49er Twitter on social media, you see no-name morons, and they're not even Niner fans, maybe some are, posting clips about Trey Lance throwing a bomb in his second preseason game and not so subtly hinting that, Jim Harbaugh's a better coach. He can build a quarterback up. And Kyle made a mistake. Meanwhile, in that game, Trey Lance was under 50% completion percentage. So anything that Trey Lance does well against the 49ers on Saturday, the Lance homers, the Lance glazers, and I have nothing against Trey Lance. I want him to succeed, but there are going to be many a cat call for, made a mistake. He can play in this league. I know Trey Lance can play in this league. He can, and he's proven he can play as a QB3. He hasn't proven that he can beat out anybody to be a backup or a starter. Remember, guys, with the Niners, he didn't beat anybody out. He was given the keys. Then Jimmy came back, signed as a free agent, and Brock Purdy was drafted in the 7th round. And one other, funny quarterback note, Nate Sudfeld was brought in for a day. His first throw in training camp was a pick. He got released. Nate Sudfeld was terrible. And that same content creator that thought that Patrick Taylor was more than just a guy was extremely happy when Nate Sudfeld's back, really strengthens QB3. Yeah, bro, he lasted not even 24 hours. Awesome. So let's talk about position battles. On the offensive line, it's the interior of the line. I see the Niners, because of the whole, at the very least, the wide receiver situation, which is going to cause a lot of musical chairs and figuring out IR, not on IR, active roster but deactivated or inactive on game days. It's going to be a 4-man battle for 2 spots. Connor Colby versus Drew Moss versus Matt Hennessy versus Nick Sakiel for the 2 backup interior spots. They are going to go with 2 backup offensive tackles. More than likely, it is going to be Spencer Buford is definitely going to make it. Then it's going to be Austin Pleasance versus the new offensive lineman that they picked up last week, formerly of the Browns. I apologize, I don't have his name handy. So Pleasance and that other tackle might be battling for the backup right tackle spot. But Colby, Moss, Hennessy, and Sakiel backing it up for 2 spots. I'm not going to make predictions now. I'll do that in the next podcast. But Hennessy and Sakiel have the flexibility to play center. They're going to need a backup center. Somebody's going to have to do it. So I don't want to say Hennessy or Sakiel are locks. I'm not going to say both Hennessy and Sakiel are locks. I think one of Connor Colby or Drew Moss makes the team. And then one of Hennessy, Sakiel, or Connor Colby or Drew Moss makes the team, if that makes sense. I think one of the young players definitely makes it, one of the rookies. And then we have to see how everything else is going to shake out. I would still be surprised if Matt Hennessy doesn't make the team, considering they signed him from the Falcons practice squad. They signed him last year from the practice squad to the active roster and extended him by a year. So they obviously, and he hasn't gotten a ton of playing time in the preseason. Usually the players that get more playing time in the preseason are the ones that are, I hate to say, quote unquote, expendable in the end. Now, tight end, only 4 on the roster: Kittle, Farrell, Jake Tonjes, and Braden Willis. If they keep all 4, here are your 4. Like there's no, that's the math, right? But what happens if they keep 3? Is it going to be Jake Tonjes or Braden Willis? To me, Jake Tonjes has shown more overall than Braden Willis has. I think both players could definitely be stashed on the practice squad, but I think both still apply as the 2 years of NFL experience or less. Remember, last year, initially the Niners only kept 2 tight ends, then ultimately went with, it might have been 3 or 4. I think with the numbers that are needed elsewhere, I think 3 tight ends on the roster and 1 or 2 on the practice squad is the way to go. We'll see. I'm going to get to that again next week. Defensive tackle, are they going to keep 4 or 5? You have Jordan Elliott, Alfred Collins and CJ West, the rookies, Kalia Davis, Sebastian Valdez, the undrafted rookie, and Evan Anderson. So that's 6. They're not keeping 6. They very well might not keep 5, but I think they should. They could keep 4. Now, Jordan Elliott, I mentioned, is interesting because if they release him, they could save about $3 million on the cap, but that is the only veteran on the line at D tackle. I don't think they want to lose that experience. And it's not like Elliott's a complete scrub. So it comes down to me, if they keep 5, Kalia Davis, Sebastian Valdez, and Evan Anderson fighting for 1 or 2 spots. As bad as the run defense was last year, I would like to see them keep 5. It's still a matter of what 5 it is. And someone like a Shackle Brown and then Evan Anderson or Sebastian Valdez can be kept on the practice squad if they need to call somebody up. It's just a matter of how many make the initial 53. Same with defensive end, right? Like, is it 4 or 5? You know who's definitely going to be there. It's Bosa, it's Mykel Williams, and it's Bryce Huff. After that, you have Sam O is probably pretty safe to make the team. You have Robert Beal, who's fighting. If they keep 5, is that your 5? Yetur Gross-Matos is going to start the year on PUP. There's no way he's, I think, going to be ready for week 1. Wear and tear on the knee. That doesn't sound good. That sounds like arthritis or degenerative or whatever. He's going to start on PUP if he could play at all. Then you have people like Trevis Gipson, Jalen Allen, William Bradley King. Now, Trevis Gipson and William Bradley King fit the bigger DN mold that Robert Saleh wants to bring. You're talking like 6'4", 6'5", 260, 265. Jalen Allen a little bit smaller at 240. So curious, if they keep 5 DNs, say they keep 10 defensive linemen, 5 D tackles, 5 DNs, I think Robert Beal could have a battle on his hands between Gipson, Allen, and William Bradley King for that last spot. Now, Beal has been recovering from an abductor strain, an abdominal strain. So he was back to practice, but he might not be 100%. We'll see if he's able to go in the game. But if there's only 4 DNs, Samo probably slots in there as the lock. But if there's a 5th that they're going to take, then I think you have that 4-way battle for it. Linebackers, 5 to me, 5 or 6. They've taken 6 the past couple of years. Again, I think with potential needs elsewhere, and the fact that linebackers can be easily called up from the practice squad and not miss too much of a beat between like linebacker 5 and practice squad linebacker 1. Or linebacker 6 and practice squad linebacker 1. You have Fred Warner, D. Winters, Nick Martin, and I think Tatum Bethune as your locks to make the team. That's 4. Then behind them, you have Luke Gifford, Curtis Robinson, and Chaz Surratt. So you have 3 players battling for 1 or 2 spots. I would lean towards 5 linebackers. You can keep a Robinson on the practice squad. You can keep a Stone Blanton's not going to make the team. He's practice squad at best, the rookie undrafted free agent. Chaz Surratt can make the practice squad, but he would count as one of your 6 veterans that you can keep. So, and I think Luke Gifford is kind of checking the box or halfway through the door in terms of making the team, because he does have starting experience. He does have significant special teams experience. And it was a point that, the organization, with the new special teams coach, Brian Boyer, and bringing in a new punter, long snapper, players at safety, corner, linebacker to strengthen special teams. I think Luke Gifford maybe has the inside track, at least on linebacker spot 5. Not sure if that's where the linebackers end. Cornerbacks, same thing, 5 or 6. So, for certain it's Demo, it's Renardo Green, and it's Upton Stout. And I think Dallas Flowers is making a great case to be on the team in one of the backup outside corners. Beyond them, you have Chase Lucas, Darrell Luter, Fabian Moreau, Jacob Robinson, and Trey Brown, brought in from the Seahawks, was put on IR, so he's done. So what's interesting about if they go Demo, Green, Upton Stout, Flowers, Lucas, and Luter is then you have 2 backups, corners of size on the outside in Flowers and Luter. And then you have Chase Lucas or Upton Stout. You have two slot guys, but essentially 3 slot guys, since Demo can slot inside as well. Chase Lucas has gotten all of the snaps and all of the preseason snaps, and also in training camp. Upton Stout has been hurt with the calf for a while. So it feels safe that Chase Lucas is going to make this team. Obviously, Upton Stout is also. So that would be cornerback number 5. Do they hold on to a Darrell Luter as 6? I think Fabian Moreau is going to be jettisoned. Jacob Robinson, the undrafted rookie out of BYU, has had a really good camp and has drawn praise from his fellow cornerbacks. Is he someone that can slot out, can make the 53 as number 6? Could he beat out a Darrell Luter? It's just having so many corners of a small stature. Robinson 5'10", Lucas 5'10", Demo 5'9", 5'10", Upton Stout 5'8", 5'9". Now we're not talking about complete midgets here, but to have a little bit more length at corner, I would personally be a fan of. I think any of us that when we're reading about our players and training camp and people and training camps, much more praise than it is anything negative, especially when you're talking about rookies or undrafted rookies. Oversell, overhype, overbelieve in the rookies, the young players, especially the undrafted rookies, and make them out to be more than they actually are. And I think that could be the case with Jacob Robinson, although I would love to see him on the practice squad. And again, who knows who gets hurt? Hopefully nobody against the Chargers or in practice where Robinson potentially makes his way on the team. And safety, fourth safety spot's going to come down between Richie Grant and Siran Neal. It's going to be Marquez Siegel, Jason Pinnock, and Jair Brown in some order in terms of starters. I believe they will carry a fourth. And if they do carry Siran Neal as your fourth safety, you can go 5 corners because Siran Neal has safety cornerback flexibility. Just something to keep an eye on. But after the game on Saturday, probably on Sunday, I'll have my 53-man prediction and practice squad, although I'm sure not many people care about practice squads nearly as much as I do. And I can't even say I care about practice squads all that much, but I will have that projection coming off of the last preseason game against the LA Chargers. So that's going to conclude the podcast today. Like always, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening and watching routine. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, preseason game number 3, the finale, the homecoming for Trey Lance and Jim Harbaugh in an absolute meaningless game against the 49ers. But people out there, fans or otherwise, will take much more out of it than there needs to, especially if Harbaugh and Lance and the Chargers perform better than expected, or better than at least the Niners perform. But whatever you guys are doing between now and when we speak again, stay happy, healthy, and safe, and we will talk soon. Take care.